All right, thanks so much, Vlad and Anne Marie. I am joined by Scott Grubman, who is a former counsel for Kenneth Chesebro, who pled guilty in this 2020 election interference case. I want to get your reaction to Judge McAfee's ruling today.
I'm personally disappointed. I disagree with it. I found it interesting that Judge McAfee made pretty clear, I think, that he thought Fani Willis was lying on the stand, that he thought Nathan Wade was likely lying on the stand, that he thought Nathan Wade's former law partner was likely lying on the stand. And then yet at the end of the day, he said in order to purge all of these issues, all that needs to happen is that Mr. Wade step aside. Let me ask you, if you were being charged with a crime that could land you in prison for 10 plus years, would you feel under these circumstances that you were being given a fair shake? Probably not. And if that's the answer, it doesn't matter who the defendant is. Donald Trump, whoever else. Due process is due process. I personally don't feel this is consistent with due process. I personally feel like the entire office should have been disqualified.
I mean, in the case of the former president and his legal team, we did hear from them, Stephen Sadow, who says that while he respects the court's decision, he does say that we will use all legal options. I mean, do you think they should appeal?
Absolutely. So there's something in the Georgia system called interlocutory appeals, which allow under certain circumstances for a defendant to appeal an issue in the middle of a case as opposed to waiting till the very end. Now, Judge McAfee likely has to give them permission to do so, so they're going to have to ask Judge McAfee to do that. I think he'll probably be inclined to give permission to them, and absolutely, I think that the lawyers will probably be filing a notice of appeal. I certainly would, and it'll be a very interesting issue for the Court of Appeals to take up.
I know you said you don't necessarily agree with the judge's ruling, but at the same time, you know, he was critical of the district attorney and Nathan Wade for that matter. So what do you make of that?
Well, you know, judges have been critical of Fani Willis before. If you remember, Fani Willis was disqualified as to one of the potential defendants, Burt Jones, who's now our lieutenant governor, because she decided to go do a political fundraiser for his political opponent. So Fani Willis, in my opinion, has continued to show at minimum horrible judgment. And yeah, the judge has now called her out on it, but so what?
I mean, do you see this as a slap on the wrist?
It's not even a slap on the wrist. You know, it's a rub on the finger, whatever the analogy is. It's not, I don't think she's going to care whatsoever, because here's the thing. If you're okay as the elected district attorney with going into court, taking an oath to tell the truth, and then perjuring yourself, you're not really going to care at the end of the day if the judge gives you, let's call it a little slap on the wrist. She's going to, I guarantee you, declare this or think this as a victory. And if I were her, I would as well.
I mean, in terms of your involvement with the district attorney's office, you know, did you personally witness or hear any rumblings about this relationship that they had?
All I'll say is it's something that Ashley Merchant, who is an incredible lawyer, has been working on for a long time. And she was very careful not to release this, not to raise it until she had her ducks in a row and the evidence all tightened up. So yes, there were rumblings throughout the time, but it was that, just rumblings, rumors, innuendos. It wasn't until after I got out of the case that it really became to be concrete with evidence to support it.
I mean, at this stage of the game, obviously your client has pled guilty, but in hindsight, do you think maybe he should have waited to see how this particular situation plays out?
I don't. Look, unfortunately, with criminal defense, this is always an issue. You plead guilty early, you usually get the best deal. But if you plead guilty early and then something happens in the case later, you don't get the advantage of that. It's always a balancing act. I can't speak for Mr. Chesebro, but I do believe he's happy with the results of this case. He's able to be back with his family. He's able to continue practicing law. So is this all frustrating? I'm sure it is, but I think that he's happy with where he is.
And ultimately, what do you think this means for the outcome of the 2020 election interference case based on the ruling today?
I don't think the ruling is going to affect it much, except this. I already did not believe that there was any chance this case would go to trial before November 2020 2024. Now, particularly if Mr. Sadow and other defense lawyers file an appeal, there is absolutely no chance that this case is going to go to trial before November 2024, which I think a lot of people would say Donald Trump would probably view as a victory, even if he didn't win this particular motion.
All right, Scott Grubman, thank you so much for joining us.